Hey dreamers, this is Jechta Plays, and today we're going to do a new tutorial, and this tutorial is all about how to make a sitting pose in Dreams. Now, the reason why I want to do this tutorial is simply because I kind of want to tackle this myself, since I also needed it for Aria, the game that I'm making. And the reason why I'm making also this tutorial is because I have recently played, at the moment that I'm recording this video, I have played the second All Hallows Dreams from the Molecule, where the characters that you have, where you can like choose around, where you like walk around in the environment, you can sit on certain locations, on the benches, on the pinball machine. And I really was curious, like, how do you do that? Like, I kind of knew that like it was used with teleporters and something like that, but I never really done this myself, and so I've been a little bit like messing around with the with the logics in Dreams to see if I could do something myself like that. And probably people that like watching maybe this and maybe already know how it works, then you don't really need to watch this if you already know. But if you wanna know how I do extra like logic, well, like my logic is not, it's simple, but it has a little bit more extra details. So I can like tweak it a little bit, like, and reuse this logic in different projects. And so if you're curious about that, so please watch. If you have no idea how to do this yourself, then also keep watching, because I will show you. And I really hope that this will help you as well to make something like this. It's very simple. Like the logic itself is not that hard. It's only that the extra little small details, just to make the gameplay a little bit more interactive. I think that this is a tutorial for you. So before I'm going to show you what the logic is doing, I want to like tell this. Like I do tutorials for YouTube. I don't do them quite as often, because there are already like a lot of great people doing logics and or like doing tutorials in general. So I don't really feel the need to do it in like every week, for example. That is not really my YouTube channel about. Like my YouTube channel was more about the sculpting videos. So if you want to see how I make certain sculptures and how I approach different techniques and texturing, then every Tuesday at 4 p.m. GMT BST time, I will upload a sculpture video. So every week there is content, and in between there will always be something else, like could be some trailers happening from upcoming projects. It can be that there will be a stream uploaded, like from the recently live stream on Twitch. It's having a little bit of a delay with that one, so it's not really like one-on-one release. But I am really busy to make it sure that like I keep it in a certain schedule. So the streams I will eventually also upload on YouTube as well, so you can always watch those back, or if you have missed something important. So you can always check those back. But like mostly my YouTube channel is all about the sculpture videos. So if you're really curious about that, like, yeah, I really hope that you enjoy those things. So that being said, now let's go back to this tutorial. Now this tutorial is like I said, meant for setting purposes on different objects, sculptures. You can basically sit whatever you want, and I will show you. So I have like a place here, like a static camera with a puppet. If I press like like it's not an image, as you can see, like it's actually moving. So if I press triangle, he will jump off the couch, as you can see, and now we are in the front of the camera. And you can also see that the triangle button is popping up, so we know that like we can interact again with the chair. So if we press triangle again, he will sit just right there. But my logic has something else as well. We cannot just not sit on one location, we can sit almost everywhere where we want. Now, I will show you that. So first I'm going to delete the camera for this purpose. Okay, so we have here like the couch, right? And the character just like walk around the couch, and we can basically sit wherever we want. I mean, like I technically put some stuff in there that I want the characters going to sit on. So if I stand here and I'm like, hey, this is like a very nice spot to sit on, the leaning on the right side, I can do that. So if I press triangle, we sit actually on the leaning of the couch. But I also can just like sit on all the seats as well, the right side, the middle part, the left side, and we can even sit on the left leaning as well. Now, this is all in my logic, and it's very simple to do that. And also the jumping off the couch is also very simple to do. Now, there might be still a little bit of a disclaimer here. I am not the logic guru, so there are probably already smart people out there maybe seeing this like, oh, Jechta, you can do it like this, fine, you can do it like that as well. But this is just how I feel comfortable doing this. And if you have another solution, go ahead. Like, it's Dream, so you always should be free whatever you want to do. There's no restrictions. So I have like the same logic on a round surface. So like this one was like more like an like one part, because like we cannot sit on this side, for example. If I press triangle, nothing is happening. But here, this is like a round round surface, like the barrel, and we can basically sit wherever we want. So if I stand here, we will sit on this location, jump off. If you stand here, you get the idea. So we can basically sit on all the spots of this barrel. And I also have like a little of a stool happening here. So if I press triangle on this spot, he will sit on that, and so forth. So it's pretty simple. But sometimes you don't want to have that. Like maybe you sometimes want to have that the character always facing in one direction, so you don't really want the character just always can sit in every single angle, right? For example, if you have like a theater happening, or if you want to have like people, so except that the player needs to look at one direction, it's the same logic. So now we can only sit in this direction, so it doesn't matter where I'm standing, I will always sit in that direction. Now, I have not really made an animation to let him sit on. You can do that yourself if you want that. Like it's just like you need to have like a little animation going before this to trigger. But that's all up to you. I don't really like to do that because my game is just going to be a little bit fun, and it's not like it's that realistic or anything. But you can do it yourself. And I also have here like a crate happening. I can sit wherever corner I want to sit at, like you can see. And this is like a one single seat again, so I can only sit on one stuff here. So that's like this. Maybe you can like make another one on this side if you want. And that's basically it. And also the logic itself will, like I made here a movable object just to show that it doesn't matter where you sit on, you can move with the object, right? You're not falling off. So for example, if you want to need a car ride, a train ride, or something that the player needs to sit on and have taken journey on the road, you can just like do it with this logic, and the player just can enjoy the scenery without falling off the sculpture. And we can also jump off again, so bloop, so we're falling off the item. So you're probably curious how this works, right? So we're going into the logic. So we're going into edit mode. And I will first show you the logic, so you can see a little bit what I've done. And after this, after I told a little bit of what the logic is doing, I'm going to do it step by step how I made this logic. So if you're really curious like how I did this, because there are some little tweaks here and there that you need to be done, otherwise it's not going to work. So you need to be careful with that. So please, keep watching if you want to know how this works. So I have here the logic, right? This is like the whole logic. Besides, there's another logic happening on the puppet, but I will show you that a little bit later. That's a really small logic. It's not really big of a deal. This is the big of the deal logic here. And as you can see, it might look a little bit too much for just a sitting pose. I would say yes, that I agree on. But like I said already in the beginning of the video, I made my logic a little bit more advanced so I can tweak a little bit better. So I always, when I make logics, I always keep in my back of my head that maybe want to reuse this for another purpose, for another game, for another project, right? So, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel all the time. So I don't want to remake the logic every time when I'm going to make a new project and that I want to have the character sit on. So instead of like reinventing the wheel, I'm just going to have one logic where I can tweak as much as I want. So I can like tweak it on the game itself, so it fits in that particular environment and style. So that's why it looks a little bit like this. Okay, so I will tell you. So I have like here I have a few like switches happening. This first switch is for switching between the single seat option versus the multiple seat options. So if I sorry, if I don't like, I'm sorry about that. If I don't like to have like multiple seat options, I can only just like select this one. And I think that this one is I've always on default if I opening this logic. So I always have like the choice between one sit option, and if I want to have the character can sit on multiple stuff, then I will activate this one here. The second switch is the dot on and off. I will explain you that a little bit later, what that does. And under this switch, I have the force, and this is the force supply, the force supplier, and this one is connected to a force supplier, as you can see. Applier. Wow, force supplier. And so this is basically when you're pressing triangle again, your character jumps off the object, and you can continue on with the rest of the environment. Okay, so then we have in the middle parts, we have here font selection. Now the font selection is something that I always do. You don't really have to do it, but I like to do this. Like I always like to have one particular gadget, or sometimes two, in order to change the rest of the text gadgets. So I don't have to open all the text gadgets individually to tweak something like a color. Like sometimes like you're not happy with the color or not happy with the font that you're choosing, right? This is something that I really recommend you to do it like this. It will say it will save you a lot of tons of time, and B, you don't really have to like deal with like for example, maybe you have a project and you have a certain font, and you have so many text gadgets happening around the environment, right, everywhere. And I would suggest you to have it like connected with at least one text gadget. So maybe like 5 hours into your project, you suddenly decided that the font you have been used is not as good as you thought it would be, and then you have to open all the individually the text gadgets to change them. Now, if you have plenty of time, you can like do that, of course. But if you have no time like me, then you really want to have something like this happening, so I can change whatever I want. So if I change here the color like red, or like let's make it blue, is a little bit better visible. So let's do blue. That means now, because like I've made here, it's called font selection, but it's also doing the color of the font. But like the reason why I have it like this is because now I have it set on blue. That means that all the connected text gadgets will be in blue as well. I think that's very convenient to have, and yeah, I really like that. So the first one is connected to the dot. So this is the text gadget, that's the dot. I will show you what the dot means after this. I have here a trigger zone. The trigger zone is the approach one. So when the character approaching the surface, the object where you want to have the character sit on, it will appear a circle. So, and once the character has reached close enough to the circle, it will turn into a triangle. So I have here another trigger zone. So when we are very close to that to the object, then the circle becomes a triangle. And once we are interacting with the triangle will disappear, of course, and then we can sit wherever we want. So this is what that logic is doing here. So here we have like a wireless receiver. It's set on the triangle button, and that's connected to an AND gate, and together with the trigger zone is connected to the AND gate as well. The AND gate is sorry about this. The AND gate is connected to a selector, and the selector output A is connected to a signal manipulator, and the signal manipulator is connected to a force applier. Now the force applier is the one, of course, what I said, like it pushes the character off the couch. And then on the B selection, we have a disabled collision keyframe. This keyframe basically means or says what it does. This is disabling the collision between the objects so that the character can sit on properly without like that it's like is going through really weird stuff or behavior. Now, sadly, this needs to be done manually every time when you're like placing this on an object. Sadly. And that is because I could maybe put here a tag instead of like for example that like it disables a certain tag, so I can like put like this couch on a certain tag, like call it chair or call it couch, or there are like different ways to do this. Like there are like maybe I can do that, but for this tutorial purpose I have it on just like in keyframe manually. But you cannot do it on different ways. But that's for this this logic. So that is like what the logic is doing. Now I want to rebuild this so you can also make it yourself in Dreams. Sadly, because I'm not going to release this logic on Dreams because I'm going to use this for my game. That's why I'm making this tutorial, so you can make something like yourself like this, and I will try to do it very slowly, step by step, how I make this stuff. So it's very simple. It's I think it's like a few. I mean, my explanation will be long, maybe an hour, but if you're making this yourself, you will be very quickly. So before we're going to do it step by step, there's another logic that I want to show you, and that one is in the puppet right here. If you open the puppet and the puppet's logic, I have here another logic happening, and that's called the character sit. And if we open that, this is the other logic that I was talking about that we really need to have. And this logic is like interacting with this logic here. So the sit pose interacts with the character sit. So what we have here also a wireless receiver. It's set on triangle for this tutorial purpose. And we have here a tag called character, and both are connected to a AND gate. So the wireless goes into A and the tag goes in B. Then the AND gate is connected to a signal manipulator, and that signal manipulator is set on toggle output at on. Then the signal manipulator is connected to a keyframe and a teleporter. And the teleporter is looking at the tag line sit. Now you can make different ones if you want to make like different like situations, but I have it for this tutorial. I have it like this. I've also here put like a timeline. So for example, if you want to have the character have a certain animation while he's sitting, that he like wobbling his feet and looking around while in idle mode, you can just like connect this signal manipulator to a timeline. So instead of like a single keyframe, the timeline will eventually appear. I'm not going to do an animation in this tutorial, but if you're really good at animating, then you know what to do. Now you only need to make an animation in the timeline. So that is the other logic. Now we have here another one that's called the approach one. And the approach one is something that I will show you in a bit. And then I also have here a DualShock logic. And I'm going to try to explain it a little bit as fast as possible. I'm not going to do this in the tutorial purpose, but it's really simple. What it's doing is I made it for myself a little bit easier, so I can reuse this every time in my new projects. I put like a controller sensor, and all the single possible buttons that you can think of I have connected to a wireless transmitter. So everything is like on the receiver. So everything is connected to a receiver. So I will open one so you can see what it's doing. So here you can see like L1, L2, R1, R2, L3, R3. So, and I have tons of them. Like I have like multiple here D-pad stuff happening here, and these are the buttons like circle and square. And the reason why I have this is so I only need to stamp it into my scene, and I'm ready to go. I only need to place the wireless receiver and put the wireless receiver on the button that I want to use. That's how it's working. So yeah, and I think now we are 20 minutes in this tutorial, and I think now it's time for us to remake this. So I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to use something for this. So I want to have that the character can sit on this object. Like I will show you, he cannot sit on this object at the moment. So if there's nothing happening here, so we need to make that logic, right? And the circle that I was talking about is that when the character becomes closer to the object, you will see that there is a little dot appearing, right? You see that now it's blue because I changed the color. So you will see that now it's the color blue. So if I click closer to, you can also see that the circle gets a little bit bigger as well, and then it like finally pops up into a triangle. So I know like, okay, so this is an interactable thing, and then I click on triangle, and then we can sit on that particular pose where we want. And you can also see that the triangle is disappearing, so we're not dealing with really weird text gadgets while we are enjoying the scene. Great for if you want to make like if you want to make photos or screenshots like that. So that's what the circle is doing. So that's what the approach tagline is doing. Okay, let's make this. I think we're ready to go for making this. So we'll stand here, and let's go into edit mode. Now, before we starting, I always do the disable hover effect and enable the grid snap, and then we're going to sorry, the grid, not the grid snap. I mean the grid. And then we're going to open the microchip. We need 2 microchips, one for the character, and the second one is for the object itself. So let's make first the character one. So I'm going to open this microchip, and I'm going to make it a little bit cleaner. So put it on the side like this, and then save the position. Now, okay, so what do we need? We need, of course, the buttons we need to press, right? So I'm just going to cheat a little bit. So I'm going to steal it from this puppet. If you don't have something like this, you can always make it yourself. It's not that hard, to be honest. Or you can just connect a remote controller. But I will go to reuse this for this tutorial. So that I have already the buttons pressed on. So okay. Now we have that, we need now the wireless receiver. So we're going into gadgets, then we go into sensors and input, and then we go for the wireless receiver. And this wireless receiver, like, we can now select something that's inside the DualShock, or the DualSense, or whatever you want to call it, and I want to connect it to triangle. That's the first one that's popping up. So if I press up, then I get the triangle first. But we can also put it on touchpad or square or R3 or R2. So I can put it like on every button that I want. And the reason why I have this now you maybe can understand why I already have this microchip. It saves me a lot of time. I don't have to reconnect the button layout anymore. I can always use this. So that's why I have it. So make sure it's set on the right button you want. Okay, the next one we need is a tag. And that's like here. And the first tag we're going to call it character. So you have to rename the tagline, otherwise it's not going to work. So very important. Name this whatever you want to have. Like in this tutorial purpose, I'm going to call it character. There we go. Yes, and then we need a AND gate. So I'm going to close the green part and then the green section, and then we open the logic processing. And here there is a AND gate. So we're going to stamp that in here. And then we need to connect the wireless receiver, the signal from transmitter into A. And then the character tech output, we put it in B. And what we then need to do is we need to have a what is it called? A signal manipulator. And a signal manipulator, that's something that we need for in order to get like the teleporter to work properly. So I'm going to need a signal manipulator. It's also in the same tab as the end gate. So like stamp that into the scene. Then we're going to connect the result into the signal of the signal manipulator. And before we're going to continue the rest of it, we need to tweak this signal manipulator, because this is a very important part as well. Like if you forget this, it will not work. So first I'm going to put this on custom remapper, and all the way in the button you see some arrows happening, right? There are a few arrows happening here. The arrow that we need is the toggle output at on. That's the one that we need for this in order to work properly. And then we also need to put the output pulse shape, like the smooth rise, at 0.5. You can tweak this a little bit for yourself for what you find the best way for the smoothness. You can set it on 1 second or 2 seconds, although I think the 2 seconds is a little bit too much with it. Just play a little bit around with this setting, and then you will see what I'm talking about. You will see what will happen. But I would suggest put it on 0.5. That's the smoothest output you can put on for characters to. Okay, so that's done. You can also like say on the smooth fall also 0.5 if you want. You can do that as well. Doesn't really matter. That's just for when he wants to sit on. Okay, so now we need to connect the signal manipulator. We need to connect that to a teleporter. So we're going to open the teleporter, in the movers output. There is here a teleporter with 2 characters icon. Stamp that in there as well. Then we're going to connect the signal output into the power of the teleporter. And then we're going to make the line a little bit more cleaner so it looks very clean. And that's it. That's basically it. And then we also need a keyframe. Now, like I said, this keyframe can also be a timeline. But I'm going to do not an animation in this tutorial. I will just do one single pose where you can sit on. But if you want to have like an actual animation happening with an idle animation, you don't put the keyframe in here, but you will put like a timeline instead of that keyframe. Now we also need to like connect the output of the signal manipulator into the power of the keyframe. I will come back to that one later. The teleporter, we need to have this like tacked on the tag that the place where he wants to sit at. I will come back to this later as well to show you how that works. Okay, so for now we are done with this logic. So we can close this down. I'm going to name this logic character sit. There we go. And we're changing the icon into a character, so we know that one, and we can maybe also change the color if you want. So this one we need for the, oh, I forget one thing. Almost forget one thing. There's one thing we need to add still, and that is the approach one. So we need another attack. And so we go back to the sensor's input, place another tag, or just like copying this one already, and then rename this one. I called this approach, and this one, what this tag is doing is when he is closer to the approach of the sculpture, then the circle will appear. So this one doesn't have to connect to anything. You can just put it into wherever you want to have it in. Like so. So that's all we need to do for now. The next thing we need to do is the second chip, and the second chip is the one that's doing all the magic. So we open this chip, and we're going to place this next to this microchip, and we need it kind of big, so I'm going to enlarge this a little bit. Like we need a lot of space for this one. Right there. And then of course save the position so we don't have to redo that every time. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is the text. Right? We need the circle and we need the triangle. So we're going for the text gadgets. The text gadgets are in the movers and outputs, and you have here the text displayer. Stamp it into the scene. And here, this one, we're going to call this font selection or font color, whatever you want to call it. And then, like, set the text opacity at 0 because we don't really need to have that appear. This is just like a fake text gadgets for us to control the rest of the text gadgets. And then, of course, like, remove all the weirdness happening around the text gadget as well. Okay, so that's what we have now. The next thing we need to do is we need to make the dot, and the dot is like what I showed before. That's like when you're like getting closer. So we're going to let me also. I don't know why I said font selection in here. I should set font selection on the other one. Font selection. There we go. Now I can easily know which one is what. So we need another text gadget, and this is the circle, or the dot, basically. So I'm going to call this dot. There we go. And then in the text field, we're going to do a macro, and that is called UI circle, as you can see here. So if you type marker, I don't know what it's called in English, but like if you like retype this UI circle with the smaller and bigger arrows, and then you get like a circle like this. And then we're going to remove all the weird stuff happening around that little thing here, like shadows and stuff like that. We don't need that. That's always ugly in your video games. And then we put it into the scene, and then we put it face camera, so we can always see that circle in the same direction where we're looking at. And if you want to tweak it like later on, you can also set like allow rotation or stuff like that, so you can always tweak it, but that's not really necessary if the face camera is on. So that's for that. And then we're going to connect the font selection color with the color of this text box here with the dot. It already recognized automatically the color. And then we're going to get also the output of the font. Sadly, this one is not automatically recognizing, so we need to open this one here, connect it to the font of the other one. So now we can just like only changing this particular gadget in order to also having the appearance in here. I'm going to make this a little bit cleaner. So we're going to put some wires like this. I always like that when it's a little bit cleaner like this. We might have to move it a little bit here and there. Now the next one what we need to do is the triangle button. So we're going to place here the triangle. And the macro for that one is just type triangle in it with the smaller and bigger arrows, and then you get like automatically the triangle. And now we're going to do the same thing as we did on the dot one. We're going to connect the color, and we're going to connect the font to the font one like so. And of course I like things to have to look clean, so we're going to place some stuff like this here, so the wires goes perfectly through the gadgets. I would recommend you to do this. I really recommend you to do this, because like if you're not like doing this, like maybe wait, I can do it maybe a little bit cleaner, to be honest. I can put it like so. I would really like recommend you to do this, because if you have like a lot of logic happening and you don't know where the wires are going and stuff like that, and I see a lot of people on social media having that issue, I really recommend you to do this, and also rename stuff. Like always rename things what they are doing, because if you want to remix this for someone else to use, and keep in mind that that person does not know how you worked or how did you do things, so rename stuff, important. So this one we're not going to call dot, of course. We're going to call this triangle. Oh, so we call this triangle. I can also put like the macro in there as well, just for extra visual. So we know that it's like, oh, this is one, the triangle. Nice, that we need. Now, the other thing that we need now is now we have the text working, right? So now we have like the triangle appearing and the dot. Now they're both in black, so I'm just going to put this on white so it's more visible. So now they're both into white. As you can see here, this is where they are. Okay, the next thing what we need for this logic is the trigger zone. The first trigger zone, actually. The first trigger zone is going to be for the dot itself. So I'm going to move this a little bit up now, because like I need a little bit more space for this. This is maybe a little bit too far, but we will see about that later. So we need like the first trigger zone, and the first trigger zone is the approach. So place the trigger zone in under this font selection, or whatever you want to place it. Actually, it doesn't really matter. And this trigger zone is set on tag, and then we're going to find the approach that we just put into the other macro. There we go. So approach, did we put it in the other macro? Yes, we did. Okay. Okay, so just double checking real quick. So we like put approach, and this one, the output of the detected is going into a timeline. So we're going into the animate, then timeline, stamp it in here, like so. And then we open the timeline, put the timeline a little bit away from this logic, so we have a little bit clear visible, save position. And then we need to put the output of the trigger zone not in the power, but in the play ahead one. So we have to put it into this one here, play ahead, and close this down for now. We're going to come back to that one later. Now the next one that we need is not a trigger zone, and we're going to copy this one here and we place it a little bit like so. Doesn't really matter where it goes. Like place it here, and this trigger zone needs to attach to the tag character that we made in the other one. So that one here, and that's fine. And before we're going to continue with the character, I want to tweak a little bit of the approach zone, because the approach zone only has now one circle, right? So now it only detects if I'm getting into this particular zone. We don't want that. We actually want that the circle is slowly appearing. So we need to have a fall off zone. So go into the second tab into the trigger zone and put the zone fall off around, I would say 5 meters. I think 5 meters is fine. So the closer you get into the object, into the core of the zone, the circle will become more visible. And I think 5 meters is pretty much okay. So now we have done that. We don't have to do that with the character though. The character, we don't need to do that. Now the character trigger zone goes into a few things. The first thing that he goes into is the power output of the triangle, like so. And we're going to already make this a little bit cleaner just for ourselves, just for this, so we know what we are doing. And if there's something goes wrong, then we can easily find things back if there's an error happening. I hope not, but you never know if it's happening or not. The next thing that the trigger zone is connected to is a keyframe. So we're going to place the keyframe like close to this one here. We're not going to keyframe anything yet. That we do later. This one we're going to connect to the power of the keyframe and also make the lines nicely like this, so we know that one is going over there. And then this character trigger zone needs also to connect to something else, and that is eventually the button prompting that the character interacts with the object, right? So we're going to need an end gate. First we're going to place the widest transmitter. The widest receiver. We place that in here. Place it a little bit so we have a little bit like around here or something. And then we need the AND gate. So we're going to put the AND gate here as well. Like so. And maybe we can put it a little bit cleaner here. And what we need to do is that the trigger zone of the character goes into A of the AND gate. And then make the wires also very good looking, like so. And put the signal from transmitter into B. And before we continue, make sure that the wireless receiver is doing actually something. So we need to connect this to the button prompting that we want. In this case, in this tutorial, it's triangle, but you can choose whatever you want. So that one is now connected to the AND gate, both of them. Then the AND gate itself goes to a selector. So it's in the same where the AND gate is. So put the selector into this macro as well, like so. Then the output, the result, goes into the next output of the selector. Sorry. The selection A, let me drink real quickly. Sorry about this. The output goes into a signal manipulator. So we place that into the scene. A goes into the signal input. And before we're going to connect the signal manipulator to anything else, we need to tweak this one. Because now it's just like having in and output, but we don't want that. So we're going to open the signal manipulator. And we're doing the same one as we did with the other one. Go to custom remapper. We're not going to touch the smoothness, but we need to touch these arrows. And we need to set it on pulse at on. So what that means is when we are in this trigger zone, and when the character is in the trigger zone, we can trigger the triangle. So the triangle is getting pressed. It goes into the AND gate. Then it will select B first, and the B one is just for disabling the collision. But if you press triangle again, then he will do a very small pulse into this manipulator to pulse the force applier. So what we need to do is we have to connect the force applier into this one, and that is over here. Force applier. Connect this one into the power. Make the line a little bit more beautiful, like so. And we set the force applier at 100% strength, and then at 0.1 milliseconds. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to add like a slider on this, so we can like tweak this ourselves later in a much more efficiently way. I'm really sorry about my throat. But it's the end of the year again, so that's happening. Okay, so then the B output goes into a keyframe. So we go into the anime part, select the keyframe, and then stamp it in. We're not going to record at the moment. Then put the B output in the power output of the keyframe, like so. And one we're also going to connect the wires a little bit more beautiful as well, because I like that. And we're going to rename this keyframe so we know what it's doing. This is disabling the collision. And yeah, I think I have not done this like myself, but I think it's more. Wait, did it not do it? Oh, I did not do it. But I think we're going to do another keyframe. We're going to have two keyframes. So this one is disabled collision there, and I'm going to have another keyframe, an empty one, and I put it next to it. I'm just doing it now, well, because like I think it's more understandable what the keyframes are doing. And I'm also going to connect the B into the second keyframe, make it a little bit more beautiful again, so that the lines are like beautiful. Really important. There we go. I can also place it underneath or something like that. And this one we're going to call it disable the triangle. So we're going to rename this disable triangle. Now, the reason why I only have one keyframe, because I am doing it both. So I'm doing and disable collision and it's disabling the triangle. But for this tutorial, I think it's a little bit more understandable what everything is doing, and maybe also for yourself that one is for the triangle and one is for the collision, right? So I do it a little bit extra in this one. And that is about it for this. Now we need to animate the dot, right? So we need to have that the dot is going to appear and disappear into the location when the character gets closer or further away. So we're going into the timeline like this that we have made before. Then we're going to put a keyframe in there. And I'm just going to clone the empty keyframe again and place this at the end of the line like so. If you like hold L1 and tap one time cross, it will connect the keyframes together, and then place the first keyframe all the way in the beginning. Then we're going to record the first keyframe, and the first keyframe is the dot, of course. So this one goes with 0%, like so, and the other one goes to 100%. I don't think you need to do this. I think I already do that automatically, but I always do that anyway in order to that things are not going to get glitched or anything. So I always put that at 100%. So now it goes from 0 to 100%. So the closest the person is, the more visible the dot will be. Now you can also make that the circle is going to go bigger and smaller, like start small. So we can do that as well. So if you're going into the first keyframe, we can sorry, we need this one. We can like make the circle smaller, 25%. There we go. So now it becomes from very small to big at the end of the timeline. So that's for that. Then we need to connect the approach into the power from the dot output, otherwise that is not going to work. So we do that, connect this one to the power of the dot, and also make this a lot cleaner, like what we're always doing. So now this is connected to the dot, otherwise, yeah, you don't know what's otherwise the program doesn't know when they're doing the dot. So that's like now working as well. So we can already test a little bit of the logic of here. So let me get a little bit closer, you can see. This character has the tagline. So if I put my character closer to this macro, you can see that the dot is going to go bigger and it appears a little bit better. So the further away I push my gadget, the circle disappears. The closer I put my gadget, the circle appears again. So that's basically what this logic is doing, and it's also a great way to show that the logic is working. So that's pretty awesome, pretty cool. Now, before I'm going into the last part of the logic, we need to do a few things with these keyframes here that's still empty. So first, this one needs to be disabled to triangle. So we're going into recording this disable triangle keyframe, then open the triangle and set this one to 0%. Boom. That's all you need to do. And then stop the recording, and that's for the triangle. Now this keyframe is a little bit different, and the reason why I made it like this is because I have other plans. So what this keyframe is doing is that it's disabling the trigger approach. The power is disabled, and that's it. We don't need this one, I think. So we only need to disable the trigger zone. So that means is that when we are in this trigger zone, it disappears the dot. The dot has become invisible, so we don't like seeing that anymore. And the disable collision, we can only do that on the object itself. I will do that as last to show you the differences. So now we can do the last part of this logic. I'm going to place the logic a little bit further, because like we need a little bit more room still. So I'm just going to place this a little bit like here. There we go. Okay, what is now going to happen? I am going to make some buttons. No, let me do first the tag. So let me place first the tag. A new tag. We place it into the scene. And this tag is called sit, or chair, or couch, or whatever you want to call it. I would call it, let's call it sit, because that's like the same everywhere. So I call it sit, and that's it. It rhymes. That's basically it, kinda. Like, that's basically already the all logic that you need for the character to sit on. But the reason why I'm not done yet is because like I kind of like to have multiple options in the gadget. So that when, for example, I want to have like a 4-seater or a 5-seater or an 8-seater, then I can like easily connect them a little bit better. So I'm going to do a little bit more. So I'm going to like copy this tag, and I'm just like making four of them next to it, like so. But now they're all active, right? So now they're all active, and I don't want that. So we need to have like a switch. So I'm going to open the gadgets again, and then we're going for the switch. And the switch, we're going to rename this to single seat on off. Single seat on off. There we go. And we're going to connect the normal output into the first one, because that's the single seat. Then we need to connect a NOT gate, like here, and the NOT gate goes to the switch as well. And this one is going to connect into the powers of the 4 that I just made. And of course, Jechta is not Jechta if he makes the lines more cleaner. So I'm just going to place them very clean, like so. There's a little bit more in the back, so there we go. So now they're all connected very clean together. And then we need another switch, and this switch is to disable the dot on off. And the reason why I have this option as well is simply because sometimes maybe I want to decide that I don't like the dot to be appearing. So I'm going to rename this into dot on off. And this one is connected, of course, to the dot trigger zone. So we're going to go for the output and then put it into the power of the approach one. That's our dot. And of course make the lines again clean as possible. Up, there we go. So now that's perfectly lined up. There's another thing that we need to do. We need to have this keyframe, and I'll call this keyframe dot on off, because this keyframe also needs to disable this switch. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And so that's like, now we can just like switch this on off whenever we want. Okay, and The next thing what we need to do is we need to have a value slider. And we place that under here. And the value slider goes on the minimum value on 0.1 and the maximum value we've set that at 100. But you can set it basically on every amount that you want. And this one is going to connect to the force supply that we made earlier. And this one we place into the force speed. There we go. And of course, I think you can already guess it, make the lines as beautiful as possible. Like so. Maybe, let me see. Maybe this one goes a little bit more down than like so. And put a little bit more here. So we can easily tell where the thing is going. So that's about it. That's the whole logic, basically. Then we need to do the value slider. I will set this one on 40. But I think that 50 is maybe a little bit better. But I think 40 is already good for the bouncing off. And before we continue, we need to go back to the first gadget. So go back to the character one. And the one that we made earlier with the teleporter and such. Now we need to open the teleporter. And the teleporter needs to have now the tagline sit. That's like here. Like it's like this. These are the tags that he needs to respond to. So we're going to connect this to sit. There we go. And now we are good. Now what we need to do is like we need to set that the the dot is off. Like we need to make sure that now that this character macro goes into the character. Now, if you don't believe me at the moment, let's delete this puppet for now, and let's open a new puppet. So we're going to stamp a new puppet into the scene, and we're just using the minimal Q sliding puppet. I always love this puppet. It's a very great puppet. Stamp it into a scene. Then open the puppets, and I always do like there's something before I'm continuing. I always like push the puppet logic not in front of the puppet, but I'm put it in underneath the puppet. The reason why I'm doing this is because like the trigger zones is responding to this gadget. So if I put my gadget all the way to here, like he responds to the position of this gadget, even though my character is not that close to the trigger zone, he still will respond because my puppet logic is in here. So I will put the puppet logic underneath. You can also put it like here, whatever you want. But at least that make it so that you can always like get to the logic, of course, that you can always reach it. Now open the puppet logic, and now we need to push or put the character sit into the logic of the puppet, and it's done. We don't need anything else to do it. Like you don't need to connect the controller logic or anything because we already made the mapper. So pretty awesome. Also, there is one thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do a force. That we're going to force possession. There we go. So we don't need to do that every time. And I really wish that was like a default option, to be honest. And the next thing what we need to do, and I'm going to call this sit pose. Oh, that was a little bit too much of go back. Sit pose. And let's make this, I don't know, like a mover icon. I don't know. I don't know what icon I want to use for this. And then make it another color, like maybe purple. Come on, purple. Purple is always a good color. There we go. And now we need to put this at the object that you want to sit at. So for example, if I want to sit on this particular object, we'll place that here. Now, before I want to have the character can actually sit, we need to tweak the text. So going to open the menu again, and what we have to do now, I'm just going to move this a little bit more to the side so I can easily tweak it. Save position. There you go. So what we need to do is I'm going to select not the single seat one, but the multiple seat. So the 4 seat, and maybe we can add more if you want. Select the first seat option, and you can see here there is a thing happening here in the center. Now if we start to move this one, it will turn into an XYZ axis, and this one we can just like place wherever we want. So I'm just going to fine tune the grid so I can place it a little bit more cleaner on the surface. Maybe 8. There we go. A little bit above, because you have to keep in mind that the character has legs and stuff like that. Also keep in mind that you need to have the Z axis always point in the direction where the character looks, where you want to have the character look at. So this is like the position where the character is looking at. So that's like the front. We can make also put one on this corner. I think that's also fun to do. So let's put one in the corner. Then we need to turn this a little bit around, like so. Then the other one is maybe doing something on the side. On this side, so we have to turn the Z-axis on this side here. So we might have to tweak it a little bit. So you always need to test, of course, eventually. But we might maybe have to tweak the positions. But I think it's already good. And another one is maybe at the other corner. So make sure that the Z-axis is in that position as well. There we go. And make it so that the character can sit on properly, like so. But now I kind of want also the character sits on the other side, and we already have used these for text, right? Well, don't worry. Just make another one. Connect, and we'll make another one. Yeah, we need 2 more, I think. Yeah, we need, or maybe 3 more, or maybe 4 more. We can make 4 again. So 8. There's 8 positions. So connect all these to the output as well, like we have done here. Connect them, or like set the wires, of course, as clean as possible for yourself. Like so. There we go. Now it's very clean. And put these a little bit more up so you know where they're going. So this one, I want to have that the character can sit here. Right? And yeah. And the other one, I want to sit that the character can sit on the other side. Make sure that the Z-axis is in the right position. And then the other one, I want to have the character sit at this corner. Like so. Something like this, a little bit, maybe a little bit more down. Like again, like we might have to tweak this eventually. But for now. And the last one is of course on the right side of this thing. So we have like 8 spots where we can sit on. And I think that's pretty cool. There we go. Now there is still one more thing before to actually make this work. We can, with this logic, we can already sit on the object. The only thing what we cannot do is, or like what is happening, is that the character will collide with this object. Now, like I said earlier, you can do that with also with text stuff. Like if you want to like rename like the sculpture, like labeling the sculpture into, like for example, this is a well, for example. It's already called Oriental Well, so you can like do that. So maybe it's a little bit easier. I don't know. Like you can always, yeah, change a little bit with that situation. But I think that this is for me a little bit easier. So I'm going to do this manually. So open the keyframe of the disabled collision. Then we're hovering over the sculpt that we want to interact with. Now open its menu, go to the collision tab, and untap or record the front one. There we go. So now it's not like lit up anymore, and that's all we need to do. Now it might happen that you also need maybe to untap foe, or it really depends on if your character is friendly or not. So that really depends, but that's what we need to do. And now we can just check it out. So if we're going into play mode and see if you have not forgot anything. So as you can see, the closer that I get into the object, there will be a circle appearing, as you can see. So the circle is appearing now. And if we get close enough, it will turn into a triangle. And if we walk away again, the triangle is going to disappear, and the circle eventually as well when we are away from that object. So let's try to sit. So I'm going to press now triangle. Oh, right, we've got one thing. It did work, but we've got one thing. We've got to do the animation, of course. So at least it works, but we got to do the animation. So we need to open the puppet and open the puppet logic, and then open the logic itself from the puppet, and then go into the empty keyframe. It's empty, as you can see, or make an animation if you want to make an animation. We need to, of course, to make like the puppet animation in here, and I'm doing it in mirror mode, like so, and put this legs up like that, and maybe we can put the character a little bit more leaning. Oh wait, let's not use. Let's use precise for this one. So let's see, lean a little bit back, and maybe with his arms. So, okay, why doesn't arms never work in the way that I want? I don't know why that's always happening with this stuff. Like arms always doing this. Let me not do it in mirror then. Fine, dreams. Fine, whatever you want. Don't want me. Don't want to help. Go, maybe. Something like that. Okay. Of course, you can animate the puppets if you want, but I will just do one pose for the purpose. Now, there is one thing that we still need to do, and that is, let me disable this one. And the reason what we need to do is because the character, if we're going to sit on the object, I can show you a little bit what's happening. Like if you're now going to sit, you can still move the character around in 360 position. So if we're going to sit on this object, he will sit, but we can like turn the character around in 360, right? So he will sit, but he will not like stay in the position. So in order to get that fixed, you need to go to the teleporter, and we have to set the match target orientation. So what it does now is that he now picks the Z-axis, and the reason why he picks the Z-axis because in the puppet the Z-axis is in front of the puppet. Now sometimes, I don't think so, but maybe it can happen that your X-axis is maybe the front one, or the Y-axis is in the front one. I would not suggest to do this, but sometimes maybe people make mistakes and it happens, but then you can still fix it with this stuff. So make sure that like the Z-axis is the one that's always in the front, because that's where the character points in. So if we're now going to sit, the character will sit into the direction that we wanted to have it on, and we cannot move it around. So I've like moved my pokes, but nothing is happening. So it works, right? The only thing is now what not working is that the character is not get forced away from the sculpture, right? Like it's not get pushed out of, it's not jumping down. So there are a few reasons why this is happening. It could be that the place of the force applier is not placed correctly. So we're going to look into that one. So we open the sit pose logic, and then we're going to check the force applier and see what's happening. So let's check what is happening with the force applier. It seems that the force applier is set correctly in the center of the object, so that should not be the issue. Now let me recheck if it's set on 100%. It is set on 100%. So I think we need a little bit more push So we set the push on 50. And then we're going to check again. We're going to sit and press triangle again. That's not pushing much. So I'm not really sure like why he's doing this, but let me see if this is working. Let me get closer to the objects. I'm curious if he actually the force applier is working, so I'm just going to... Okay, he does put a pulse onto the force applier, so that is good. But I don't know why he's not want me to push the character. I think the reason maybe is because it's too small. So I'm going to make the fall off zone a little bit bigger to 50. Let's see if that's happened. No, that's not really... Okay. That's really weird. It's always with tutorials like... It can also be that like maybe make it a little bit smaller. But we need to make sure that the character is get pushed off all the corners. It is in the center, so I don't really know why he's not wanting me to push. Everything goes well except for this part, so that's great. I don't know why he's not wanting to do this. Oh, he's not also doing it on this one here now. Wait, there is something wrong with the puppet, I believe. Okay, there is something wrong with the puppet itself. Because like he's not also responding to the other parts anymore. So it's not the force applier. So the force applier is fine. There's something with the puppet that is not working anymore. What is the reason for that? I do not know. It's set on sit. The keyframe is set. Signal manipulator is set correctly. I think it's because of the smooth fall. So let's put the smooth fall at 0. It could be that. I'm 100% it's that. Because like we yes. Okay. So the reason why that was not working is because I told in the beginning of the video that 0.5 seconds would work maybe as well for the fall, smooth fall. But that doesn't really work with the force applier when he's like pushing that character away. So don't touch this one. At least we know now. So that's like why it was not working. But now it's working. So now we just like push off the well, as you can see. And we can sit on every corner where we want. So we can sit on this spot here. We can sit on that spot here. We can sit on this side here. We can sit on this side here. We can sit on this side here. We can sit on this corner. And you always push it in the direction where you want, right? Like it's always pushing in the direction where you want. And oh, we don't have one in the corner here? Oh, we don't have one in that corner. Oh well. But you get the point, right? So you know that now it's working. And now we can just like sit on this well. And if you don't like the force that like we pushed on this one, you can always like set it back to 40. So it hops like not so far away anymore. As you can see, the distance is now not so far away. But the reason why you need to tweak the force applier is because like some sculptures need to have that little bit extra push. Because of the shape's form and stuff like that. So, for example, the couch is set on 50 because like it felt for me more naturally to do that, and like this one is set on 40, so it feels more naturally for this one as well. So that is it about this this tutorial. I really hope that you learned a lot in this video. It's an hour and 40 minutes we are in. It's a quite long video, but I think the way how I did this, I think it's nice so people can see very good like how is the logic looking and how to make the logic step by step yourself, if you want to make something like this. Now, I'm pretty sure that there is like other solutions for this. That maybe the logic can look a lot cleaner, but I think I already made the logic as clean as possible. I mean, I don't think that like I can clean up more than this. At least not in the way what I want to have in my game. So I want to have the dot, and I want to have the arrow, like the triangle popping up. If I don't want that, like if I don't want the dot and the triangle happening, I can also just like disable the dot. So if I click one more time and on the disabled dot, and now if I just like walk away, the dot is not appearing anymore, as you can see. Only the triangle when we get closer, but not the dot. So the reason why I have this option is like what I said earlier in the video, is because like I can always tweak the things in every situation. If I don't like the dot appearing, or if I want to make like a detective game where there is like maybe dots so you can see which item can be interactive and which not. So I really want to have this feature and option into my logics, so I can always like tweak them in the right environment, in the right location where I want them to be in. So that being said, I really hope that you enjoyed this this tutorial. Thank you so much. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much that you put like you're spending so much time in this video. But I really hope that you learned something today, just as I did with the smooth one at the end. I will not cut that out because like I think that's for you guys. If I make a mistake, then it's also a great way to learn for yourself, right? So I'm not going to cut anything into the videos. I'm never doing that. Mostly I'm never doing that unless there's something else going to happen. But normally I don't cut into my videos. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for just made it so far in this video. Before I'm going to leave, I really want to tell you still a little bit of householding. Every Tuesday at 4 p.m. BST and GMT time, I will upload a sculpture video. So every week, there will be content of dreams, and it will be different from every week. So every week is a different sculpture, or sometimes there are two parts or multiple parts of the same sculpture. So I go like a little bit like dive deep into the texturing and stuff like that. So sometimes a sculpture have like two videos, or sometimes they don't. It really depends on if I can get it into 1 hour, because I try to make it always a 1 hour video and not too long. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that you will follow me and on social media and stuff like that. If not, then that's your choice. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that you learned something. And don't forget to dream, everybody. Bye bye for now. Bye bye.